Hey you! Yeah you! Before we get into the video, I just want you to know, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash that like button, click the subscribe button to become one of the darkness, and smash that bell boy to get updates on those crazy videos you might miss out on. Don't miss out on those crazy videos now, it'll be bad luck for it, won't it? So anyway, let's get into the vid. Welcome back to another Souls of the Damned, and today we are heading to modern times to deal with a dark and depraved case that was unleashed by the Grindr Killer. Welcome back to another case on the most disturbed individuals existing all throughout the annals of history. Today we are heading to less than 10 years ago, from 2014 to 15, to discuss our first LGBTQ+ serial killer, but certainly not the least. There was a lot of them. A lot. This is Stephen Port, aka the Grindr Killer. Born in 1975 on the 22nd of February on Southend-on-Sea, but quickly didn't live there for long as he and his parents moved all the way to East London, particularly Dagenham. Well, wrap it up now guys, you can see why he started killing if he had to live around a place like this. He grew up there and his parents still live in the area to this day. Stephen, even at a young age, he was described as being a loner and was often relentlessly bullied at school during his childhood. His teachers even mentioned that his personality was quiet, while a neighbour described him as being a bit peculiar childlike personality and showing odd behaviour, especially as a grown man. And how are these people not working for the police? Could already tell he was going to be trouble. He left school at age 16 and went to an art college. Oh dear. Well, probably be glad Stephen never joined politics. An art college, but was too expensive for his parents, so he later trained to be a chef, and even worked at Stagecoach as one. And here's a bigger role, literally appeared on MasterChef. Bet they don't want to remember that. He later came out as gay in his mid-20s, and to further report about what his neighbours and teachers said, a former roommate also described he had an odd personality for his age. He later left his parents in his early 30s and lived alone in a flat in Barking, London. He was clearly insecure about his premature baldness, so he wore a toupee to meet other men. And this is probably where his inner demons took hold. Stephen's insecurities with his own sexuality along with his odd behaviours didn't take him long to start killing others like him. He used a toupee mentioned before to lure in and meet other men at bars and clubs. But he also used several dating apps that include Grindr, Hornet, Gaydar, Manhunt, well that name aged well, Planet Romeo, Badoo, Couchsurfing, Slave Boys, and Daddy Hunt. The fuck are these websites? His killings were spanned between the years starting in June 17, 2014, where he first contacted his first victim, a fashion student by the name of Anthony Woolgate, who on certain occasions worked as an escort too. Stephen pretended to be a client and offered Anthony £800 for his services and went back to his flat in Barking. So, trigger warning here for those who've dealt with SA before. He drugged Anthony with the drug GBH, which is a well-known date rape drug many creeps use out there. But even far worse, Stephen overdosed Anthony to the point he died. He didn't mean to do this obviously, but it didn't stop him from doing it again in the future. A day later, in the early morning on the 19th of June, he dragged out Anthony's body outside of his own flat and phoned the ambulance, pretending he saw a man stumbling off drunk, where he would then dump his body off literally right outside his own flat, where he was later found and pronounced dead. He was arrested for his connection to his death in March 2015 due to his varied accounts on what he was doing, but was later released to carry on luring other men to their fate. Over the next year, between August 2014 and September 2015, he killed only 3 more men. He did rape many others though with GBHs but never died. But probably had to have tons of therapy though. The second victim was an immigrant who moved from Serbia by the name of Gabriel Kavari, and actually briefly lived the port as well at the time. The third victim was a man from Kent called Daniel Whitworth who worked as a chef. The thing that connected the second and third victim is that Port dumped the bodies off at the nearby graveyard where he lived. He clearly wasn't the smartest dildo in the drawer. They were found by the same woman walking her dog on different occasions. To further note, he planted a fake suicide note on Whitworth saying he was responsible for Kavari's death, even though they wouldn't have known each other. A for effort, I suppose, Stephen? The last victim was a man called Jack Taylor who worked as a forklift driver and still lived with his parents in Dagenham. Wow, sounds like they were made for each other. Well, if he didn't murder him, of course. The murders were investigated to the extent which we'll get to later, that's a whole other story. Stephen wasn't caught for his heinous crimes until late 2015.
In this quiet suburb of Barking, the crimes of a serial killer unfolded. None of them any further than 400 metres from his front door.
Stephen was arrested in late 2015 and was charged with 4 counts of murder and 4 of administrating the poison. I mean, do you really think the guy who dumps bodies off in the same place and fakes a suicide letter, or a guy who didn't even know the other victim would get away with it? You! Put down your hand and leave the room. Anyway, it was also revealed that Paul had his own GBH dealer by the name of Gerald Montalvo who supplied him with the stuff to help him in his murders, and was later convicted of a murder himself against a businessman called Eric Michaels by using similar methods to Port, and was sentenced in 2019. Later for Stephen in June 2016 at the Old Bailey, prosecutors added more charges, including 6 more counts of administrating poison, 7 charges of rape of unnamed victims, and 4 of sexual assault, while also facing 4 alternative charges of manslaughter. Port wasn't in court directly himself and was on a video leak from the prison he was residing in, HM Belmarsh, and as he is such a bright and special boy, denied all these charges, as of course you would. On November 23rd of 2016, Port was finally sentenced and convicted of the murders of Woolgate, Kavari, Whitworth and Taylor and all the counts that are placed on him, and was found guilty, and in total, 11 men were known victims of Port, but only know the names of 4. And on 25th of November 2016, was sentenced to life imprisonment at Belmarsh Prison, where he still resides to this day. I guess when they start doing tours you can go and visit him and show him that truffle souffle you made, considering he's a chef. In August 2018, however, Port did lodge an appeal against his conviction, but a few months later it was rejected. Gladly. And now, this is where we get into the mishandling of the investigation by the police themselves. So as the murder took place in London, it was the Met Police's job to uncover who did these killings. Well, it wasn't handled well, and considering the Met Police are in the news constantly due to reasons like this.
Wayne Couzens and David Carrick, 2 of the most heinous criminals to wear the uniform, but they were far from alone. Face after face of those we should trust, but all of these Metropolitan Police officers have been convicted of crimes since 2021. In a force that's also guilty of institutional misogyny, homophobia and racism, branded as being rotten to the core, unable to police itself. A picture of the force, who, it said, underprotects and over-polices black communities, who are more likely to be stopped and searched, handcuffed, battened and tasered. that has allowed predatory and unacceptable behaviour to flourish. Of rape, one officer told the Review, the detection rate is so low you may as well say it's legal in London. A force that has deep-seated homophobia within it. One openly gay officer said he'd seen messages where colleagues joked about stopping and searching him whilst off duty. He told the Review, "I'm scared of the police. I don't trust my own organisation. I will vary the route I walk to avoid walking past police officers when I'm not at work."
Yeah, there is some deep, serious shit. And expected homophobia is probably the reason why Port managed to rack up a high body count. First, the body of Woolgate was dumped outside Port's flat and didn't think it was suspicious along the two inside the graveyard, and they failed to link the deaths and literally thought they didn't die in suspicious circumstances. Yeah, we are talking this level of dumbassery and ignorance. Even Pink News and the Force's own LGBTQ advisory group called him out for this, and they even said that a serial murderer was at large. But still, the police told them they were not linked. So these are the list of victims created by the Grindr killer Stephen Port. Anthony Woolgate, Gabriel Cavari, Daniel Whitworth and Jack Taylor. With many others he drugged and raped, but obviously not named due to privacy reasons. And the worst thing, if the police did their job, there would have been only one death at the hands of Port. So this ends this tale of dark insecurity and hiding the shame of sexuality, created by the insane nature of Stephen Port, the Grindr killer. But there's many out there feeling insecure about their true nature. Will they strike next? See you next time on the Souls of the Damned.